screen. It's not cloudy anymore.
Yeah, I don't, Dr. Robinson, I've given up on the technology. It is what it is when I get here. Sometimes it's light, sometimes it's dark.
All right, good morning. I welcome you all to our hybrid board meeting this morning. I send greetings to citizens of Chatham County and to our customers. As we watch the news, we hear that there's an uptick in the rise of COVID cases. So we are reminded to wear face masks and continue to work with our social distancing. With that said, I would like to call this meeting to order. Time is 10:03. Beverly, can we have call roll?
Yes, sir. Good morning, everyone. Director Emerson?
Here.
Director Odell? Here. Director Stone? Present. Director Lockett?
Here.
Director Adams?
Here.
Director Robinson?
Here,
Director Leggett? Director O'Halloran?
Here.
Chairman Cody?
Here.
You have a form, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Beverly. With that, I would like to ask a motion for a second to approve today's agenda for July 27th.
So moved.
Second. Beverly.
Yes, sir. Director Emerson?
Yeah.
Director Odell?
Yes.
Director Stone?
Yes.
Director Lockett?
Yes.
Director Adams?
Yes.
Director Robinson?
yes,
Director Leggett? Director O'Halloran?
Yes.
Chairman Cody?
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you. Moving into the action items for the day, we have 5 items on the consent requested approval. Do we have a motion to approve in a second?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Do we have any discussion?
I have one.
Right.
This is Dr. Robinson, and I'm looking at item number 4, the PTASP plan. I want to encourage the developer of this plan to please review it. I went through it. There's some errors that I think need to be corrected. And if he wants to call me and we can talk about it, but I think it is important that we thoroughly read through it and make those corrections because some of them are extremely important.
Question about the safety plan
Yes.
on page 53. I think it's bullet number 9. It says,
I have a question as well, actually, too.
if someone is driving a commercial vehicle and they have committed a felony in the last 3 years, they can work here. But if they manufacture, distribute, or dispense a controlled substance, it's 7 years. Now, to me, I think that if someone commits a felony with a commercial vehicle, it should be the same penalty. It should be at least 7 years. I mean, I just have a concern about if someone is using someone else's vehicle to commit a felony, and we say in 3 years it's okay to drive our vehicles, that gives me a little bit of heartburn. I think it should be the same. That's just me personally, but I would like some discussion on that perhaps.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah. No.
I mean, if you murder somebody using somebody's commercial vehicle, and then now you want to work for Chatham, and I realize there would be more scrutiny, but the way this reads, they only have to wait 3 years. So,
Yeah.
but if you sell drugs or manufacture drugs or distribute drugs or dispense drugs, it's 7 years. So I think the penalty should be more comparable, in my honest opinion. And I think if we're talking about safety, not only safety of our drivers, safety of our passengers, safety of this community. But if someone has used a commercial vehicle before to commit a felony, I think 3 years is kind of on the narrow side to let that go.
I think, oh, sorry. I was, Dr. O'Halloran had a comment.
Dr. Halloran,
Yeah, I think this should be probably kicked back to committee and let it be reevaluated. There's a couple of things. I know the score on page 18, we put in a paragraph about score, and I think that should be removed. That's old information that shouldn't even be in there anymore. So if it's not ready to vote on, I think we should hold it and table it till next month. And my second point was on item 5. That is actually, we would like to have a vote on that today. So it's really not on the consent agenda. I'd like to have everybody vote and get to make their piece and make their comments if they need to.
This is Dr. Robinson again.
yes.
Dr. Helen, I saw that as well, the score piece, but my question was more about, does the current administration embrace that? And if they embrace that, do they want to continue with it? So I think that should be a staff decision about why is it included in there? Is that something you want to continue?
Based on last month's board meeting, it should have been. And I was saying to the chairman, because we do have some concerns and we need to make some corrections, I would ask that this would be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the agenda for August.
I can make I make that motion that we remove item number 4 from the consent agenda.
I was gonna vote on that.
So that is consent items 1 to 4. I'm sorry, not 1 to 4, I'm sorry. We'll be removing item number 4.
And 5.
And right, so it's 1 to 3.
Okay, 1 to 3. Thank you.
5 is going to be an individual action item for today.
Right. So, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve items 1, 2, and 3.
Yes, thank you. Director Ellison?
Yes.
Director Odell?
Yes.
Director Stone?
Yes.
Director Lockett?
Yes.
Director Adams?
Yes.
Director Robinson?
Yes.
Director Leggett?
Yes.
Director O'Halloran?
Yes.
Chairman Cody?
Yes.
Thank you, motion passed.
Thank you. All right, we have 2 additional items for board approval and discussion. One of the items are time sensitive, so we wanted to get that before the board today. So I'll ask a motion any second to enter into discussion for item number 1, a grant application for a community partnership. We have a motion to approve and a second.
Motion approved.
Second.
Then we can use the roll call. We don't have any discussion on the items, number 1,
Partnership program.
community partnership program.
I was just wondering which category, because they have several categories, like poverty reduction, youth development. Is there any particular category we're going to try to encompass all of them in our application?
Actually, we're targeting workforce development.
Okay.
Thank you, Director Ellison?
And just to we're voting on this one.
And just one item, community partnership program.
Okay. And we're just voting on.
Submitted the application. Yes, sir.
We did we review this?
We did not, and that's why we placed it on individual action item. But if we do realize it's a time sensitive, that application was considered by all of
Okay.
Yes, it was discovered unfortunately, well, maybe fortunately for us,
Yeah.
but it was discovered after the reviews.
Totally planning on voting yes on this, except unless there's something really crazy, but can you just tell us a little bit more about, I created workforce development, very cool, go on that. How specifically, what are we proposing to do?
This is something that Ms. Roundtree discovered, so I'll let her speak to that.
Good morning. Good morning, Chairman.
Yes,
So, the members of the board, we did realize that this was an application that was qualified for a little bit later. The deadline for this application is next Monday, which is the reason that we are asking for the board to authorize for us to submit this grant opportunity. The City of Savannah had identified in their budget meeting in 2021, it's their budget policy direction and resource guide, a list of priorities. So we have decided to move forward with focusing on poverty, income equality, research management, and citizen engagement. And so we met last week, the entire committee, and we have come up with a few options to submit for. We didn't want to miss this opportunity to potentially get a grant with the city or partner with them for this type of, or have this type of partnership with the city of Savannah. So we're just asking for your support. We are focusing on workforce development in addition to youth development. I think this is a great opportunity. We have to be probably, something in this initial stages because the grant funding amounts are only from 5 to 50,000, which is not a lot, but we certainly didn't want to miss this opportunity.
And what would we spend that money on?
Yes, so we are not sure if we will, actually be awarded this grant, but we're looking at initiating some type of workforce development partnership with the city of Savannah, potentially working with Savannah Impact Program or the Front Porch, so that we can start developing our youth to have opportunities for jobs in public transit. So we thought this would be a great opportunity to actually piggyback off of just income equality and just really trying to reach out to the youth to satisfy some of those initiatives that our interim CEO has wanted for the agency.
So you're asking for 50,000, what amount are you gonna be asking for?
I think that the city, based on the way that the grant is written, they decide, what you qualify for, but it's the range, their ranges are from 5 to 50,000. So we don't know, we just wanted to kind of propose a program that falls, we're hoping between 25 and 50 that we can certainly ask for.
Well, because you have to attach a budget to your to the application, you do have to specify exactly the amount that you're asking for. You do have to specify. So based on the what I hear you say, it sounds like what you're trying to do, it wouldn't hurt to ask for the 50,000. You may not get it, but you go for it anyway.
Yes, ma'am, Dr. Robinson, we certainly will.
Any more questions? Discussion? Beverly, you can do it.
Yeah.
Director Odell, stepped out of the room. Director Stone, out of the room. Director Rocket,
Yes.
Director Adams,
Yes.
Director Robinson,
Yes.
Director Leggett,
Yes.
Director O'Hara,
Yes,
and Chairman Cole.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. The second item for approval is the governance calendar for the first half of fiscal year 2022.
Yeah, the first half. If I might, Mr. Chairman, this is for what on the agenda previously, but we never, the board has not approved it. And I believe that the reason was that we waited to see what the structure of the board was going to be, the committees as well. But we're bringing it back because we haven't done the first half and we want to move forward with having the governance calendar approved. Nothing has changed, it's basically the same. Meetings will remain on the same days on second, third, fourth Tuesdays, with the exceptions of November and December for holidays.
Yeah, I'm fine with approving this as long as we make the corrections on the lower section of the committees. The dates are fine. That's pretty much standard that we've been doing. So I'll make a motion. We approve the dates on the calendar with the recommendation that we change the committee's listings for the next update.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, because we still have some of the office listed on some of the.
When you say the committee listing, Dr. Howland, I'm kind of lost.
Those aren't going to be the committees any longer. That's being changed. I don't know what date we're starting that. I think in August. We're going back to the old committee structure.
So the names of the committees will change, part of the strategic plan is,
Yeah, and I think the members are changing also from what I understand.
Are you architect for that?
Oh, what?
For the update to the committees?
Right now, it's in review with legal.
Yeah.
It's in review with legal.
but now we have not seen those revisions yet as a committee, have we? As a board, have we?
No, ma'am.
No, that's why I made that a provision of accepting the dates. I don't mind locking the dates in, but when we change the committee structure, we'll have to update this calendar.
The structure that was sent to legal was sent to us, and we did review that a couple weeks ago, right? Yeah. Yes. No. Do we have any idea what our lawyers are looking at right now?
They're actually examining the structure of the committees, whether the functionality of the committees actually, that's what they're actually examining.
Okay, and once we hear back from them, we can make it.
We can provide it to the board members and you can provide input as well.
Got it. All right. Cool.
And with that also, when that changes, we have to remove the resolutions that we made like a year and a half ago to set up that committee structure, because that's in place until we vote it out of place.
So noted, Dr. Farrell.
So basically what I'm motioning to approve is the dates for the upcoming meetings as is,
Okay.
so that we can mark our calendars, and the other is pending approval.
Yes, sir.
So we'll be looking to approve the meetings that we have on the second, third, and fourth Tuesdays.
Yeah, with the exception of the last 2 months.
The holidays were Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Yep.
So we'll also be holding a floor retreat in the early part of September. We have any questions?
But now that date has not been determined yet, am I correct?
Yes, we haven't implemented the date yet. All right, so we're gonna call for a motion in a second.
Okay. We have that, that's our last motion.
Second.
Director Emerson,
Yeah.
Director Odell, Director Stone,
Yes.
Director Lockett,
Yes.
Director Adams,
Yes.
Director Robinson,
Yes.
Director Leggett,
Yes.
Director O'Halloran,
Yes,
Chairman Coe.
Yes,
Motion passed.
right. So we want to revisit the CEO executive search firm contract award. We have any,
I can take that one if you want to, Cody. The committee met with all three potential vendors. We, as a committee, decided on Basinger and Associates. It was also the first choice of the procurement committees. So our recommendation as a committee is that we award the contract to Basinger and Associates for our CEO search. And I'll make that in the form of a motion.
Second.
Yes, Director Emerson?
Yep.
Director Dale? Director Stein?
Yes.
Director Lackett?
Yes.
Director Adams?
Yes.
Director Robinson?
Yes.
Director Leggett?
Yes.
Halloran?
Yes,
Chairman Cody?
Yes. Thank you.
and I guess we can authorize Andrew and Ty to go ahead and issue that contract or work on a contract for Basinger. I'm not
Yes, I
sure
mean,
what-
we will begin reviewing the contract and marking it up.
All right, and who's good?
Actually, we had a contract with Colin the last time, which I revised substantially, and it should make a good template for this time as well.
Okay, good. Can we at least let them know that they've been selected? I don't know who gets the call, but someone should let them know that we're going to be working with them.
That should come from Mr. Colon.
What does our time frame look like in that?
Yeah, that was my question.
They said they would start at the end of August, most likely, and within 90 days, they will be have completed the contract, and probably less than that, but they said to put it at 90 days. So hopefully within 3 months, we'll be interviewing and hiring a new CEO.
All right.
I'll reach out to Mr. Malone and procurement to issue that report letter.
Thank you.
Do you have any more discussion? All right, we're now moving to the part of the agenda for the staff updates. Mr. Ragland.
Morning, Chairman,
Come on.
members of the board, members of the public who might be joining us, as well as staff who are here. Place an update for in your packet, but I'd like to just hit on a few main points, and one major point being that while we're still having issues with absenteeism, mainly because of the COVID-19 virus, and people are employees having to quarantine themselves in most cases, we are still operating at service levels that you've seen in the past month or so. But I want to note that I want to particularly thank our supervisors, as well as those operators who've been working overtime, but supervisors have been stepping up to actually run the routes, sitting in the seats of the buses, and they're making their rounds. When we have shortages for operators, those supervisors are stepping up, as well as administrative staff. On every level, we've had administrative staff assisting with the paratransit operation as well, picking up those passengers who are ambulatory that they can, transport in one of our support vehicles. And I just want to say thank you for seeing the need, the crisis that we're in, and for stepping up, doing your part. We are continuing our recruitment program through WSAV. We've had some good results. We've had some inquiries, of course, but we're moving forward. We're hiring up new operators, both on the paratransit side and on the fixed route. Last week, Mr. Cooksey, who is our operating officer, and Beverly Dumas, board administrator, and I went through a series of interviews with our supervisors. These are people that you normally don't see, you don't hear about, but they are operating supervisors and maintenance supervisors. And I just want to let you know that it was well received by them, the opportunity to come to the executive staff and share some ideas, recommendations for improvements with service. And it was good for us to hear from them. ideas that they had. So I just wanted to highlight that because we don't usually hear from those people. They're the ones that are actually supervising the maintenance crews and the operators, but we don't usually hear from them directly. So I thought it was important to take that step and to talk with them, and it's been very informative and beneficial. I also have in the packet that I've been speaking with some members of the City of Savannah team who are involved with Savannah's Employer Assisted Home Purchase Program. And so board will be receiving some information in the near future about that. I think it's an opportunity that we can seize to assist some of our employees who are not homeowners currently, would like to become homeowners. So I've been in discussions with that staff, and it's very promising. Also, tomorrow, as a matter of fact, at 5:30, I will be hosting, I have a seat at the table with the interim CEO, where I would invite employees to call in to address their concerns, to make suggestions for improvements, not just for service, but for the organization overall. I think it's a good opportunity for us to examine each other, to put each other onto the test, if you will. So I'm looking forward to that at 5:30 tomorrow. And the legislative agendas are in your packet. Mr. Backer is here. If you'd like to make any comments, I can give it to him at this time.
Sure, thank you. I'll be very brief. We've been working on monitoring whatever efforts are ongoing through Chairman Ellis with the One Chatham project that will be moving forward with a goal now, as we understand, of placing a T-SPLOST referendum on the ballot during the March primary in 22. Recently, as I alluded to in the report, there was an announcement of a program that the state is moving forward with that is a total of about $4.6 billion. The first release of funds is about $2.3 billion that the Office of Planning and Budget is working through to release applications that will be available August 1st with a deadline of August the 31st. The categories are economic development, water and wastewater, and broadband. And basically, they all are driven by mitigating economic impacts that are the result of COVID-19. Each one of those buckets of money has approximately $300 million in it. So there's going to be a significant amount of interest in how this is going to unfold. In the presentation that was made to the three committees that the governor has set up to work with administering these funds, they talked specifically about negative economic impacts that would have been a result on projects that were derailed by COVID-19 or that could be implemented to help with economic recovery. We are not certain exactly what that means. I did have a series of meetings with legislative leadership over the weekend, and at least for the House does think that there's an opportunity for economic development programs such as new buses or new water ferries that would be designed to service the tourism market and the convention market that exists and is growing here in Savannah. We are not sure at this moment if there is a actual connection in terms of what they are going to be looking at or not, but are trying to work through those issues now because this is a moving target. It's going to be moving very, very rapidly. They have no concept of how many applications they are going to receive, how they are going to process those applications. And I will also comment that there appears to be a natural tension now between the Executive Office of the Governor, Office of Planning and Budget, the House budget writers and the House leadership, and the Senate as well. So this is going to take a little bit of time to unpack and to figure out what the nexus will be in terms of putting in applications for economic development that will be moving forward in the future, that will help the economy, or if it is going to be limited to mitigating negative economic impacts that took place to existing operations. Within there, you also have the issue of organizations such as CAT that did receive COVID relief funds to mitigate some of those impacts. So we're going to be working on this pretty aggressively over the next couple of weeks. In fact, the application process opens on Monday of next week. So stay tuned to this. We'll be communicating with you on this. If there's any way that we can put in an application, I would suggest that we do so, because the standards are going to be driven by OPD within the federal guidelines and standards, which I know all of you understand can be extremely complicated and extremely confusing. So that's where we stand. I will be beginning the process sometime next week of having individual meetings with members of the legislative delegation to talk about where we are, where we stand, et cetera, as we move forward to the process of ultimately coming up with the development of a legislative agenda for the upcoming legislative session. The biggest challenge that the legislators are going to have this January is going to be how they are going to, how are they going to handle the uncommitted basket of dollars that are there from this COVID relief package and the amount of interest that is going to be there for this one-time money. So I'll be happy to answer any questions that anyone could have. I'm not sure that I have too many answers on that. So, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Mike, just a quick question. So there is a chance that some of this leftover 4.9 million might get to transit from the state?
I think there's a definite possibility. I'm not certain if it is going to be in the initial letting, which is this, at least for economic development, this 300 million. There will be a second release of funds that will come sometime next year. There also will be significant money that is going to be earmarked for use in the supplemental appropriations budget. So I think there are at least 3 bites of the apple, and we need to figure out which side of the apple we want to bite when we decide that we're going to start moving forward with this. And obviously, we're going to be looking at what is going to have the highest potential of being a success and fitting within the guidelines, and more importantly, how the state decides they're going to interpret these guidelines.
At least, hopefully, it doesn't all go to MARTA again.
I think there's going to be a huge amount of interest from a large number of not only other transit agencies, but all kinds of different activities around and across the state, not limited to transportation.
You mentioned that T-SPLOST is on for early 2022.
It's my understanding that the plan is to move that forward on the primary ballot that will be in, I believe, March of 22.
That's like relatively important, right?
That's very, very important. That would be up to, I think, $300 million, $400 million. And there probably will be 2 or 3 levels of funding. One which would be overriding projects that are going to have community-wide impact. Then there will be other projects. There would then be another level of projects that perhaps wouldn't be that overriding with implications, but then each one of the jurisdictions, including the county, would then have their list of projects within the project list itself. The question would be to levy up to 1 cent of local option sales tax for a period of 5 years to fund transportation capital improvement projects. And so obviously, new electric buses, a new facility if that is needed, and money for additional water ferries as well would be items that would probably have a fairly high priority on what I would hope would be the community-wide overriding set of projects. This would be viewed much as the county jail was, or as the judicial center is, and that these are projects that affect everybody in the county.
And similar to SPOS, is this something that the chamber would get behind and promote?
I would think that the chamber, I do know that the chamber and SIA are two of the other key organizations that are working to move this forward and develop what can and will be a rather complicated project list.
And then finally, there's the project list, and there's the actual language, the small paragraph that everybody votes on. Who's in charge of crafting both of those? Who's the final say? Is that's a county thing?
That is, the state law basically stipulates what the structure of the question would be. So it is a very generic question, basically asking if you want to levy a 1 cent tax for 5 years for transportation projects. The project list would not appear on the ballot. The project list would appear in the collateral that would be produced moving forward, but there would be a intergovernmental agreement that would exist that would have as signatories every one of the jurisdictions within Chatham County. Now, should all jurisdictions not agree, or there be a jurisdiction that does not agree, that does not stop the process from moving forward. What it does is it limits the amount of the levy of a potential tax to 3/4 of a cent as opposed to a full cent.
I think you answered my question about local or regional T-Splosh.
Right. And of course, this T-Splosh would be local, ideally incorporating all of the governmental entities. Now, we are working to make sure that we have a seat at the table that we're supposed to have. I'm not sure which table it is as we move forward. And we are kind of in that quasi-governmental place that I'm also working with the airport on the same thing to make sure that that our projects and their projects have a prominent position in this entire dialogue. So this will unfold probably in the next 30 to 60 days, because it then will have to move very rapidly moving forward to the primary session, which will really gear up probably the latter part of January, where the candidates will qualify up until that date for the primary. There was concern, as I understand, in putting this question on the general election ballot, because there is concern of how that would interface with the school system's ELOST referendum that is going to be on the November 21 ballot, and what the impact would be if that were to fail. Then what would the posture of the school board be in terms of moving that forward again? And they would potentially be able to put a redo on that particular referendum on the general election ballot. You have to wait. If it fails, you have to wait a year and 1 day. And obviously that election ballot, I think it's November the 2nd this year. Next year, I believe it's November the 8th. And so those are kind of the mechanics and some of the behind the scenes considerations and discussions that have been taking place to try to figure out what the sequence of events should be. So there's going to be a significant amount of work that will go in prior to the call for the actual election, but prior to the call for the actual election, crafting the projects and the intergovernmental agreements with each one of the individual jurisdictions.
Director Adams had a question. Oh,
I'd just like to add that we have been in contact with the county staff. As a matter of fact, I've already submitted a list of T-Splosh projects to the engineer, Suzanne Carter.
Right.
So I've already submitted that list to her.
Great. And I would stress it's important, once we've done that, there are basically two levels of committees. One is the city managers, one is the mayors. I'm not sure which one of those committee structures will fit into, but I know that the chairman should be on the list of one of those groups and making sure that we are effectively represented there so that our voice is heard, because it could very easily get clouded since we're not one of those groups that would be part of the intergovernmental agreement. Our projects would have to fit in under the county, as I understand it.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I actually have a couple of questions for Val. If
Yes, sir.
it's concerning these COVID callouts, how are they being handled? Are they being paid for quarantine? Are they requiring medical verification of the COVID?
They are supplying medical verification or at least testing. When they report to us that they're positive, they have to verify that. It goes through HR. HR is reporting the information and assigning them a quarantine until they can bring a negative test. They have so many days that they can come back, and they have to go through the HR department. HR then notifies the departments that the person is out until further notice or until they test negatively. And then there's a matter of tracing in some cases because the interaction that the operators have among each other. So some of those have been trace calls. But everything is being funneled through HR and they're keeping account of the tallies.
And are they being paid their full pay while they're out on quarantine? Or is that being used up against like sick time and?
Every employee is eligible for 80 hours pay under the current Biden or under the presidential administration. They have up to 80 hours that they can use for COVID-19 reporting.
I'm wondering, is there a possibility we may have to consider mandating vaccines?
Well, I just read an article yesterday where New Orleans Transit did just that. They have 800 employees and they are mandating. Actually, by the end of this week, they have to submit full proof of vaccination or not return to work. Now, there's something that, like I said, we're looking at. We have not spoken to legal yet, but I am just trying to research some of the other properties around the transit world to see what the move is. And New Orleans did mandate that just this week.
And how much is this hurting our service as far as the percentage of call outs that we're getting? Is it like 2%, 5%, 20%? I don't know. How much damage is this doing to the company?
I don't know, Dr. Heller, based on percentages. I'll make a note to inquire about that. But we are feeling the effects of it, definitely among the paratransit operation.
And where are we as far as documenting vaccinations for employees? Do we have a percentage that's been vaccinated?
Right now, we're at about 30%, which is low, very low.
30%. That's even below the state average, which is in the bottom 5%.
We have been discussing internally what types of incentives we could place before employees. But this is all discussion as we research this issue and how to handle it because it is a delicate situation.
Yeah, because it's continually getting worse. It's not getting better anytime soon.
Well, actually, the report that I received from operations yesterday is showing that this month, actually July has been a decline. So the percentages have been higher. Trying to find my notes here. Overall absenteeism for July was about 14%. In the previous month, it was almost 16%. So there is a decline. We're hoping to see further declines as we move along in this quarter.
That's still, considering that's 70% of our budget. It's going to be expensive, and I know we're not budgeted to cover excessive absenteeism going into this year. And that could become a very big problem if it's not reimbursed by anyone. As at this point, we have no one who's reimbursing for the losses from COVID.
Yes, I was gonna say that although these funds are being spent through operating, the federal funding has allowed us some cushioning, if you will, for these expenses.
Well, let's hope it gets better, because it's not going to be good if we keep losing drivers to COVID for 2 weeks at a time. Is that the quarantine, 10 days or 2 weeks?
No, it's no longer 10 days. It's as soon as they can return back, as soon as they test negative.
So they have to receive one negative test or several?
It's been running about 3 days.
Okay.
Then we have other issues as well that contribute to that high absenteeism, things like workers' compensation, long-term, short-term disability, all of that factors into the absenteeism rate. It's not just COVID-19.
I just think 14% is extremely high. That's all for me.
You good, Dr. Alron?
Yeah, I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
My question was actually about the percentage of vaccinated employees.
And we even had a health clinic from the health department come on site. So we've been doing our part to encourage vaccination, but at this point, we can't force employees, not right now. We can't mandate.
I think we're going to have Ty and Andrew look into that as to whether or not we can mandate it.
Right, we'd be happy to do that.
Have any more questions, any more comments?
All right,
Next on the agenda, we have executive session. We want to include pending or potential litigation, tax matters, real estate, tax position.
We have a bathroom break.
Oh, you still? No, let's go. We go ahead, we go to finish. Right. Okay, my apologies. Russian.
That's all right. Mr. Cooksey, if you will, Mr. Cooksey will come forward for a service delivery and safety update. Ms. Dion is dropping it.
She's gonna drive that. Good morning, Mr. Chair, Ms. Ragland, Board of Directors, and colleagues. And I know some of you made the professional break, so I promise I won't take as long as I don't. But so we'll go ahead and move forward, talk a little bit about some of the data. This is our on-time performance for the month of this current previous month. So again, our numbers are generally flat. However, we did miss our target for the year, for the fiscal year. We ended up at 62.13%, it's 70%. So definitely have a lot of work to do in that area. I understand there's going to be some different things coming this new year, which may impact that and to make some improvement. So I think we can definitely, that's a number that we can definitely work towards. Next slide. Okay, as far as our ridership, we had an 8.9% increase over last month on our fixed route ridership. So if we compare this to the same time last year, same month rather, it's an 11.1% increase. So I mean, generally the average that out, looking at our average around 10%. Again, we're still down quite a bit, and we have not turned the corner in that area. But however, there was an improvement over last month. Yes.
Just for the record, I stated this earlier, and I know Ms. Ragland indicated that there would be some changes and we would be looking at some things, but in going back through the historical data, it does concern me that the fiscal year of 15, we went from 21.5 to around 17.9. And pre-COVID, we were at 18.3 to 14. So we've got to start looking at what our demands are, where they are, and how to best service our riders. But if you go through this, and I'm sure you'll get to the benchmark with the Skidaway and Coffee Bluff route, that it's costing $80 per person. So I think this is an opportunity now for us to really get into the first mile, last mile, or on-demand service, however you want to phrase it, and start putting our heads together. We have some wonderful, dedicated employees here, and we have a good organization. But I don't think we're maximizing our potential at this point. So any research that I can help do from other transit companies all over the United States, I'm happy to dig in. But I just, I think that we can do better on ridership. I just really do. And for what type of vehicles we're using to service what routes.
Go to the next slide, please.
I have one quick question, Lenny, on, let's say, for instance, we changed the vehicle on that Skidaway route and went with a small van or something like that. Does that require CDL licensing?
No, sir. Not if you went with the smaller.
So it'd be similar to what we're paying paratransit?
Yes, that's very possible.
Yeah, that may be an option.
Yes, sir. Go to the next slide. Oh, she's here. So as far as paratransit, we actually down this month. Some of that's due to some of the challenges we've been facing in reference to our staffing. Again, thank you, Ms. Bradman, for acknowledging the staff to serve our customers. The good news on this is for the fiscal year, we did beat our target, which was 90%. We came in at 91.8%. So that is a victory, but it's a tough year. It's still a tough year. So that's a very good job overall for Para. They had some strong months. Just last month was down. They did manage to meet our target. So I'm very excited about that. Next slide, please. In reference to our paratransit ridership, for some reason, the June, I did not capture June, but it was 6,824 trips, which actually was a small increase over last month. However, about 37 trips less than last year this time. So again, it remains flat for the most part throughout the summer. Other than March, we saw that spike. Since November, it's pretty much been in the same range of ridership. Next slide. I wanted to close out the year as well for our top 5 paratransit operators. This kind of went back and crunched some numbers for the fiscal year. And you know, we've seen a lot of the same names, but those 3 individuals, Nicole Lloyd, Chiquita Jinks, and Wendy Wilson, actually finished the year the strongest. So we were able just to come up with these numbers. So hopefully get an opportunity to do something special with them. Again, I'd like to thank them and actually the whole team just for continuing to strive for excellence. And again, great job for those individuals. We kind of broke it down in their top 5 rankings throughout, as you can see where they finished each time, each month. So they had some pretty good numbers, pretty consistent numbers there. So great job to that team. Next slide. Our reservation form up 3, not a big jump. So, you know, again, this is new. So we'll continue to watch that and see how we can continue to make some improvements to get people use that process. Next slide. Our water ferry ridership, you really see some huge huge increases here. 4 consecutive months it's climbed. Actually, an increase of 22.6% over last month, and then an 89% increase over this time last year. So of course, we were in the midst of the first go round of COVID-19 at that time. So the numbers may be a bit skewed, but the numbers are strong. So the ferry continues to perform well. The team out there performs well. And people are out riding that ferry. It's just not people here for a convention or some other event. These are people that come into town just to ride the ferry. I've been out there myself. A lot of them just want that experience. They don't have the opportunity to get on the water like that. It's a fun thing for them. So great job for the ferry, continuing to grow and having a pretty strong summer. Next slide. Maintenance numbers are consistently the same. I know there was a mention of looking at the KPI on this goal of 12,000, and that's probably something in the future with the committee we can relook at some of the numbers. But I do continue to highlight this because I just like to continue to highlight the work that they're doing to keep these vehicles on the road. So great job to the maintenance staff. That's everyone. And again, kudos, continue to do that, continue to hit those goals. Next slide. The call center had another great month. It's a pretty competitive group. A new record, 27 seconds. Our goal that I set for the team was 60 seconds or less on pickup time. So great job for them continuing to just amaze me. So good job there. Next slide. Incoming calls, obviously people want to reach CAT. These numbers are good. So a 2.4% increase over last month and a 12.2% increase over last year at the same time. So this is really our second highest number of incoming calls in the last 16 months. So, it's working out well. Our online or on cloud call center is doing well. We're managing well, and very good job of getting those calls answered and taking care of our customers.
Question about the calls.
Yes.
Is now time. Okay. Your calls, do you categorize your calls by type so that you can do the data on them?
We are working on that. We're not quite there to do that. That is something that we're working on capturing type, also type of complaints.
Do you have call tags?
Yes.
In the system so that you can tag them that way?
Yes.
So have you determined what your frequently asked questions are? So that you can set those up in the categories?
We have not yet, but that is something. As we expand our call center capability, that is something we definitely want to do.
Okay, I'd be interested to see how you set up with that.
Okay, that'd be great. This data or this information we were capturing this wasn't really until August, September. So it's a relatively new technology for us. And if we can continue to work with it, what it can actually do for us, but that is something that I'll circle back.
Are you tracking your productive and unproductive hours in your operator?
Yes, we're able to pull that down.
You can pull that?
Yes.
Okay, so you know when they're on, when they're off?
Yes.
And what they're working on?
Absolutely. It's heavily monitored. Absolutely. So that system does allow us to do that. But especially that they're working from home, you need to be able to see what's going on, who's on, when, and how long they're on.
Are they signing into the server or are they signing into a cloud?
They're signing into the server.
They're signing into the
Yes.
server?
Yeah.
With the VPN?
Yes, I believe so. I'll circle back on that.
Okay.
Yeah, see how that was set up.
And do you have a database manager that's gonna set up and monitor the call types, or
We do.
you're gonna designate a certain operator, you're gonna rotate it, how are you gonna do that?
Yeah, we have our customer service supervisor, her name is Ashley Wilson, and she currently oversees the program and monitors the data. So she's actually the point person on that. That's what that is.
Be able to generate standardized technical reports?
Yes, absolutely. She sends the data now that I request, and so she will be the person that will go in and be able to send that information.
I would like to see your architecture.
Absolutely. And we're also open to on that. We have had a visit county to look at how we're doing, how we're running our call center. Next slide. It's a very competitive group. So this is the pickup rate for our call center advocates. The top three, they like to see who can out who. So we like that as well. So it keeps them going, and they enjoy the excitement of competing.
So the 98, so 99.85, she's picking up that second ring.
Right.
And 99.40, she's picking up that third.
It's probably, it may be the second, but a hair slower. You know, it's right in that time frame. And these calls actually bounce to someone else, so they're all doing a great job.
And so how many of your calls go to voicemail? And how often do you check voicemail?
Yeah, that I can give up that information for you.
And when you check voicemail, do you include the voicemail as a point of contact? Or do you just include the return call as a point of contact?
We include the voicemail, I believe.
So you get 2 points of contact from that phone,
Yes.
right?
Yes. I believe that's correct.
You guys have music playing?
Oh, you have a suggestion? Or?
I'll come up with a couple. My bad.
Okay, next slide. And just a quick few things here on our risk management. Again, our top areas of concern are generally our strains and strains. As you'll see on our top 8 count, that generally seems to be the top 2 areas that we always seem to have for soft tissue injuries. We go to the next slide. That gives you a number of what those costs are in those areas. And actually have Mr. Hall here who going to have him come in light of our current situation, have Mr. Hall give us a COVID update, but he can also expound a little bit on some thoughts or some ideas that he had in reference to mitigating those areas of concern. Mr. Hall.
Are your strain and sprains lifting?
Most of them are attributed to actually twisting. When you're securing the wheelchairs, that happens quite frequently. Past I mentioned about healthcare providers in Central, we actually have some physical therapists on staff, and we're trying to put together some training for securing wheelchairs, where they will come and show correct techniques to use lifting, bending, and manipulating the restraints on the chairs. That's where a lot of our injuries have been reported. We've had some sticking balls as well, but most of them are soft tissue, twisting, bending, reaching, and lifting.
Is the carrier the carrier usually has training for lifting, pushing, pulling type stuff. Have you checked with them?
Yes,
They have that kind of-
Century is the one that we actually use the TAPCO technique training regimen too. That's standard throughout the industry. It shows how to secure the wheelchair, but we're going to enhance that team with what they offer as well. They come and shows how to properly lift to protect the muscle structure when you're lifting. We met with them about a month and a half ago. We're just trying to get it rolled into our safety meetings so they can actually come on site and go to that regimen training with our trainers.
Do we have a wellness program?
Not really. Currently.
Because the wellness program might include a stretching class,
Right.
so that they could, that type of work would almost be akin to actually working out. And so a stretching regimen prior to going on shift. Some facilities have added yoga as a part of their wellness program.
And we talked about some of that during that meeting, and oddly enough, some of the information I can happen that when you go to a program like that, you can also anticipate some injuries as a result of that. Because now what you're asking people to stretch or bend before to now.
Right.
So that's also part of the discussion.
Right, but if we have a wellness program, we will probably get some trickle down benefit for our health insurance.
Correct.
Because they would work in congruent. And we might be able, in the long run, from a 3 to 5 year range, reduce the strains and pulls from the back, maybe 20%.
That's good. Some of these numbers keep up our account. So once we sex and accept that injury like
For the life of the body, right?
So, to your point, 3 to 5 years.
Because you could start tracking from the creation of the wellness program. And then you'd be able to determine the cost benefit of the wellness program as well as the reduction in injury.
Actually, because we get those statistics from, so
Right.
easily identify when the program starts.
The county has.
So you could use their phone.
I was going to add that, of course, our medical provider, Blue Cross Blue Shield, they promote wellness and they're even providing incentives for our employees.
Right.
Because I mean, I got $800 gift cards, so that's something, you got one too, right? Right.
Yeah,
So some of the employees are taking advantage of that aspect of it.
Some of the benefits with the health insurance might even compensate you if you brought like a yoga instructor in or a stretch instructor in, or you work with a provider to provide those stretching services. It's an easy 3 to 5 year goal to meet with a significant reduction in injury.
Thank you.
Good. Now, I'll go ahead and hop into some of the code stuff. I've been monitoring the uptick in code for the last 3 weeks to a month. One of the things I did last week was actually craft a newsletter that touched on code and allowing our operating staff to realize that they had to come away. I know it was going away. And what I did was wrote an article, and I tried to encourage the utilization of vaccinations without doing so. And what I did was I used a juxtaposition between polio and COVID. And so I just asked you a rhetorical question: when was the last time you've seen Philippines with polio? I'm trying to encourage the utilization of vaccinations here because although it does not prevent you from getting COVID, it does vaccinate simply once you do contract it. Over the last few weeks, we've seen some significant upticks, even since the board report information that you all have in your packets. The numbers have increased significantly since then. Also, as you already know, the mayor has also reinvigorated his mask mandate. That's kind of going over here. Maybe should be here today as well. I have some statistics I got this morning from just Chatham County alone. As I indicated, I've been watching this for a couple of weeks now. From July 12th to July 26th, per 100,000 citizens, the numbers have dropped, increased from 84 to 289. That's per 100,000. That's since July 12th. So numbers are going up significantly. Since July 2nd, COVID-19 tests for positivity has gone from 5.7% to 12.2%, and that's as of July 23rd. So the numbers are continuing to grow, and fortunately or unfortunately, that will impact our operations in transit as well. And even looking at the daily models, how it's projected, it's steadily going up. Yes, sir.
What is the national trend for drivers, as you call it? What is ours?
There is some research that I have current numbers, but I think those numbers have gone down because of some of the measures that transit is using, like masking, sanitizing, social distancing, step partitions that they're now putting drivers behind. All those things have mitigated those numbers. And this week, the numbers were relatively high, but I can say they have increased. And most transit agencies, as mandated by the FAA, are still adhering to the mask mandate. So that also helps the drivers. So the rate of actual drivers is going down. Okay.
Have you thought about maybe having a medical provider do a Q&A with the drivers so that they can ask the questions and talk about their hesitation? You know, I mean, it's the difference between having the vaccine and not is probably the difference between you living or dying once you get it. So I'm sure that they have hesitancy for whatever reason. and maybe having a medical provider be able to answer those questions might help them be more comfortable.
I can look into it and probably share something about next city, we may have that as part of our next city.
That would be a great idea.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of myths out there.
It's a whole bunch of this, like, you know, there's no magnets in it, nobody's put a tracking device in you. Nobody's gonna be following you around and listening to your personal conversations that you got the vaccine. I mean, it's just a lot.
Well,
So,
just an informal conversation out there, around here, some of the conversations that move back to the Tuskegee experiments and not having the.
yeah, but in the Tuskegee experiment, those men were denied medical treatment.
Right.
Nobody's denied medical treatment at this time. The only thing that's similar is that people were sick. It's not a similar scenario. It's, you know, it's just distrust.
Yeah.
But, you know, the Tuskegee experiment was, like, you know, what, almost 100 years ago.
Right.
So, I mean, not that to discount the atrocity that took place during that time, but we are in a different place and a different time. And the scenarios are not that similar to draw the conclusion that the same thing would happen. So maybe if we had a medical professional.
And we have access to that as well, so.
Yeah.
That would be great.
Yeah, because, you know, they have questions, let's answer the questions so that they feel, at least they will be informed about the decision that they make. You know, it looks like the trend is going where private industry is mandating the vaccine because people are not volunteering to do it. There has been a test case in Georgia yet, but I see that there's one now. So I know the hospitals have started mandating it. You know, I know it's gonna be something that we should probably check with AFTA and see how they're doing the guideline of it. Because we could very well be spreaders. Because of, you know, our close proximity with the general public and the fact that we are the main thing with the people on the bus come and go, but you're the same driver. So, you know, at some point we may have to decide whether or not we're going to demand that our drivers be vaccinated, which will create a whole nother batch of problems.
But I think to your point, if you preempt it by having someone come in and explain about the vaccine
In detail.
and eliminate some of the myths. Also, a statistic that I got from the county yesterday was that even after you're vaccinated, even if you get COVID, the chances of you're going to the hospital are less than 1%. So that in and of itself, to me, is very valuable.
I explained to my people that if you get it, you're not gonna die. You may still get the virus, you just will live, which is the ultimate goal. You know, you might still get sick, you just won't like die from this.
And you won't have to be hospitalized.
You won't have to be hospitalized or intubated.
Right.
Any other questions? All right, thanks.
Thank you, Mr.
I
Hall.
got a question. As far as parents, it seems like I'm working for them. I congratulate you on what you're doing. Getting out there, driving, and picking up people. But I'm getting calls like I'm calls. Of complaints. Late pickups, missed appointments, things like that. What can we do to help that process of just appointments, just pickups and things like that?
Well, well, one positive note, mentioned is we have, fortunately have 3 students at this time who are actually out, trainees, rather, who are actually out, currently have gone through the class portion of our training, actually out on the road portion of that. Adding those 3 individuals into the workforce will help us alleviate a lot of those. We were down, our goal was to hire curb transit operators. That was our first class of 3. It followed on with HR. just so when our next class, our goal is for that next class to start the next week or two. You know, 5 kind of the target. You know, the goal is to be out of this in the next 45 days. It's just going to take that time. What we have done, all savings, like myself, I go out and help. It's all hands on deck. That's to help, one, with the cost, and 2, we just kind of serve the customer. So we are doing all we can to pick up the trip as well. Like I'll do manifest and run and do just as much as we can. But I think our way out of this is that model. And we've made adjustments to the schedules. I mean, we put different processes in place to look at it. Okay, before 10 a.m., and this is how many unscheduled we have. Okay, we're going to move these trips to this portion. I mean, everything is being done to shift this around, and to the point where, like, even on the admin staff, we go out to make those pickups, so we don't to mitigate it, so we don't get those complaints. We are working hard on that staffing. I'm very excited that these 3 have gotten this far. A lot of times you get new trainees, and they just won't get past the classroom portion. In fact, these 3, 2 made 100 on the exam as far as written exam, and the other one was 95. So they seem to have a good aptitude of what we're trying to teach them and move forward with a great attitude. So 2 more classes, if we can get to 2 more classes, and we seem to be well on our way, that will really help us take care of a lot of these customer service complaint issues. Like I said, we're filling in, and we'll continue to do that until us is part of our job. So we're working on just kind of filling those areas where you may get a complaint. We're out there trying to mitigate those and pick up and make phone calls, do whatever we have to do to take care of them.
Mr. Carly also looked at how you do your complaint process. You hire a person who just handles complaints part-time or something, because they're not happy with how they're being handled, which is why they're funneling off to everybody else.
My other question was, has anybody looked at the transmission of COVID with the drivers? Tracking that, and like we come in here, we have to get our temperature checked. So when you get on the bus, you have to get it checked. So is there a process, or is there a plan, or can we put in a temperature check on the bus? So if a customer comes on and the temperature is over temperature, you can't get on because you may be transmitting, spreading it to everybody else on the bus, including the driver. Right.
Ooh, we got security on the bus.
Yeah, I mean, if you could throw somebody off, you're gonna get a fight.
We have to have some bouncers on the bus.
And you're right, but the reality of that, I can just see it right now. Somebody says, well, I've just got a cold and I've got a fever and you can't make me get off this bus. I'm worried that that's gonna put a lot of stress on the driver.
Yeah, because I mean, they're already.
And some of your routes are actually going to hospitals as well. You got patients, maybe the only way to get to the hospital is to be on a CAT bus as well, so.
There's limited technology that is really accurate enough to meters on the bus. We look at that as a possibility, but it's just not there to make that investment. Because we're probably talking about something that costs $50, so that yeah, kind of look at that. Yeah, just that's the other issues that.
Mr. Cooksey?
Yes, I'll speak up. Sorry about that.
The problem I think we're having is that sometimes we don't know where the conversation stops because of the way you guys are positioned by the mic. But I want to ask you a question about increasing rider share. When I look at the development that's going on, and probably Mr. Leggett and Mr. Lockett can talk this better, but you have a huge increase in housings that are going up on that east side corridor, which would probably impact the number 10. You got from Wheaton to East Gwinnett to Pennsylvania, where you have a huge number of apartments going up. The Hitch Village renovation that's going on, and how are we watching that? We don't know yet who's going to be living in those apartments, but some of them will more likely be bus riders. So how do we gauge the scheduling, proactively for future influx of possible riders, especially along that east side corridor?
I think that along with Director Stone was talking about, we really need a holistic approach to our ridership and our routes. And the very thing that you're speaking about, Director Stone is speaking, spoke about, is just that, just a holistic look at every route, every development along those routes as we begin to I wouldn't say rebuild, but reimagine what Chatham look like in the coming months. So, so those opportunities will present themselves. I mean, they're here now, and we do know that is something we have to look at. How do we service those areas when we're looking at increased ridership? Our focus now needs to be on, we talk a lot about COVID. Unfortunately, it's re-reared itself. But we have got to, I agree with everyone here, we have got to start looking at finding ways to increase our ridership, and pretty much shifting our gear into more of an offensive posture and finding ways from the collective group to increase our ridership. It's just crucial for us to do that and not continue to let too much time pass without doing so. Sorry. Yeah.
That's okay.
Yes, sir.
How many effective training do you expect for these therapists?
Well, yes, sir. Well, I have 3 currently. The goal is I'd like to get 5. So if we get that 5, that puts us at our 8, which is our budgeted head count. It puts us there. It'll take a tremendous amount of stress off of us. So of the 5, generally what happens, we may lose 1 or 2. So that means we need at least 2 classes to reach that goal. So yes, sir. That's the magic number at this time. Yes, sir.
What's their expected completion?
The expected completion date, August the 9th is a soft date. We do allow time for anyone who's had any, driving issues or need a little bit of extra time, but that's our soft date, is around the 9th. So we're right there.
And that's non-CDL, right?
That's non-CDL, yes. Yes, sir. Non-CDL paratransit training should take anywhere from 5 to 6 weeks. Yes, so we're right there.
We have a plan in place for if we don't get the amount of drivers.
We're going to continue, our plan in place is to continue hiring. We're not taking our foot off the gas on that. So that's not an option. So it's open, we're going to be aggressive and continue moving that forward. I mean, there's no reason we should not be there. I mean, there's good benefits here. It's a good job. It's a great opportunity. The union goes back to negotiations in September for the paratransit side. We're structured well. We should be able to get those individuals to come and work here.
I'm sorry, but no worries. I was just going to say that one very real issue with the paratransit service is that pre-COVID, we were able to assign more passengers to vehicles. But because we're still practicing social distancing, we can't schedule as many clients to one vehicle. That affects us a whole lot. I mean, that just makes it, well, we could have scheduled 6 people, we could only put 3 now. And in addition to that, we're short of operators. So it does make it for an unpleasant situation for those on the receiving end. I understand that. Please just be patient with us because we have to try to protect our operators and protect passengers as well. So we can't load a full bus. We can only do a half bus. So it takes a little bit more time.
I think to add on that, where we were heading up until this month, was they were just talking about through APTA and through the different organizations that I sit in on, is really looking at and reducing the social distancing 6 feet and eliminating the mask mandate, which would completely help us out a great amount, because then we'd be able to put 5 or 6 on the bus. It would have really helped us out of this issue. Now we stand pat with that, so we'll still have that, continue with that challenge until things turn around.
I think kind of on that same note, sort of like half capacity, how many people can fit on a regular sized bus?
So on the floor,
On a fixed size bus?
you can get anywhere to, I mean, stanchions, and you can get anywhere up to 20.
So if we're at half capacity, that's gonna be around 12, 13, 15 people right now.
The way things are kind of structured off in our paratransit vehicle, 12 passenger, you're gonna get 3, and then you have your wheelchair, it's only one at a time.
Yeah, right now, I'm just talking about fixed
Yeah,
capacity.
just all around.
So we're kind of at a problem, because right now we've got buses that can fit about 30 people in them, but we only fit 15 people in them right now. And with some of these routes, we're hitting 12, 13 people passenger hours per on average, which means that there are definitely times during the day when buses are full. And I know specifically, personally, a number of folks that are trying to route 14 and they can't get on the bus because the bus is full. At the same time, Route 20 is running around with like 1.5 people per hour, using just as much resources, just as much cash. And it's not really, it's helping like 133 people a month. Whereas Route 14 is moving, 198 people a month, and Route 14 is moving 26,000 people a month. These are like, and this is kind of what I'm saying when we're trying to increase ridership, which we really should try to focus on. I think we got to dig real deep and look at the structure. Where are the routes? Why is it that we have a bus, no matter what size? I think that's a really good point. But even underneath that, you just got the problem, the fault, the error, I think, is in the design of the route. And there's so much that we can optimize for ridership. But previously, we decided for a long time that ridership was not our goal. Coverage was our goal, so that everybody, but maybe not all the time, could get on the bus. And we're very good at that. We are not very good at making sure that people, that a majority of people get to the majority of the places they want to go, a majority of the time. I think we really, really should sort of dig deep and try to figure out a way to move forward for ridership.
But you really, really can't do anything about COVID. So
True.
you can't put more people on the bus.
True, you could
So
consider
unless
running
you're
higher
going
frequency,
Well,
which is
or
what,
you could, I mean, the only other thing you can do is add 2 buses to a route
exactly. And so
during the pandemic.
one thing that you
But
could
you don't
consider-
have the drivers for that.
So, sorry, kind of go. So one thing to consider is, would we want to eliminate Route 20 and move all of that to Route 14? If we have people on Route 14 who aren't able to get anywhere, and we could potentially increase service by like 10% of that would increase ridership. Because again, I know people specifically who have not been able to get on the route. And so this is gonna be a challenge, because
Well, we can't take something away without giving something to replace it. So if you take 20 and take the bus, you gotta have something there to replace it.
but this is
Because
the problem,
coverage-
this is why we backed off of doing the ridership coverage, because
Yeah,
we
because,
will have.
because people wanted to cut the route and not put something there to replace it. They just wanted to cut the route.
Well, the on-demand service might help with that.
Yeah.
So we don't have it in place.
Well, that's, we need to get it in place.
So if we're gonna cut a route, there needs to be a logical, feasible
Well, I think what you're trying to
alternative.
do, I think the problem here is that you're trying to please everybody at the detriment of a majority of the people. And you just simply can't, I mean, like, we're still in the middle of
Let's
the
just
crisis,
see,
the
let's
hiring
just see
crisis.
what they come up with. I mean, they hear us. Let's see what they can come up with and how we feel that looks and whether it needs to be tweaked. But these are the professionals. Let's give them a chance to analyze the situation and come up with suggestions based on, any data that they can pull. Doesn't have to be necessarily from Chatham area transit. It could
And
be
when they do,
other
if I may,
areas.
I think we should encourage ourselves and push ourselves to make some potentially difficult decisions for the greater good. And if that means potentially moving ridership from places that are not very productive for us and moving it to areas that are very productive for us, I believe that is for the greater good. We can get 1,000 more people on the bus with a negative impact of 10 people.
Well, let's
I
see
think
what
that's the
they come
decision
up
that
with.
we need to make.
Let's see what they come up with.
I would love for you all to do that as soon as possible, but I haven't seen any direction from this board other than just sort of chit chat in the middle.
Well, I've been asking for the first mile, last mile, which is a step in that direction. So I've been asking for that for quite some time. So I think,
Should we put some deadlines and some like, I mean, this is like, I also think this is not a situation to band-aid it over and over again. Like we kind of need to dig deep and do some work, which takes money, time.
We are looking at mobility options, different options, as I was discussing with Director Stone before the meeting began. We've already placed 4 on-demand vehicles on order, and we're hoping to, if you will, cut through the red tape and deal directly with the dealership that the maintenance director has been speaking to. So we do realize the urgency of the matter, and we are seeking other options.
I'm very supportive of that. We'd be happy to vote on sort of, you know, situation to bring increased ridership in a way that makes sense.
we'll see what they come back with.
Yeah, I think we could handle some of this in committee rather than doing at a full board meeting. That's what the committees are supposed to be doing.
I feel like that's.
And there will be a service delivery committee, and that's the kind of thing they should be looking into.
I've got another question. I don't know if this is the right time, but just making sure we've got massive increases in ridership on the water ferry. Are we prepared for that? Are we doing anything that we can for the water ferry? For make sure that's all set up.
Well, I'll just say that water ferry, the vessels that they're using currently, Mr. Gunby is doing an awesome job in keeping them afloat. We need some new ferries. We need some new ferries.
So I remember there was something that came up either last meeting or something about the water ferry. Can you just kind of jog my memory on that?
We have been able to access grants that would purchase ferries. Our problem is with the 10% match, the local match, is what we've been having problems with. Hopefully, we've been speaking with some area community partners, especially the Sandy Board, Business Savannah Chamber, and the Convention Center, and hopefully we can come to a meeting of the minds that we can, and the city of Savannah as well, where we can achieve that local match. We haven't had any problems receiving grants for it, but it's been the local match.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense.
When is the new ferry due in?
Yeah, we have not ordered.
We have to order the ferry because we have not secured that match. We are waiting for a promise match or commitment, but it hasn't come to fruition, so we can't move before that's done.
Is there anything we can do as a board to help with that?
I'll let you know, Dr. Robinson, I'm sure there is, I sure will let you know. I'll be glad to let you know how to make those contacts.
Well, we're here to support you in your efforts, so that's what the board is created for.
Thank you. If there are any other questions, we'll move forward with a system development update. Sean Bradley.
This will be really quick. The information system development update is in the report packets. We're just going to highlight a few items that's within the report. This is a recap of presented on this before, but the conversation continues with the potential expansion into Garden City. We are still looking at a phased approach. We had a really productive meeting last week with staff, our legal team, Mike Backer, and we determined that there were some other things that need to be done before we can move forward with this. So there will be some meetings, hopefully this week and next week, and we hope to be able to bring this before the board, or just move to our the next phase of potential expansion. As a recap again, the first phase is on Route 21, adding stops to that route. And that should be a fairly easy process, but we now realize that there are some things that have to take place before we can do that. So the conversation is continuing, and we hope that this will be, we'll be able to move forward with this expansion soon. Dr. Is there anything you wanted to say on the Garden City or anything?
No, I think you've covered it.
Okay. Also, we know now that the dot has resumed, so we're all very excited about that. This team is working, luckily with the city of Savannah, on updating all of our brochures, posters. They're also in charge of managing the website for the dot, social media advertisements. So you're seeing that the ridership has been really good on the dot as we expect. And we just hope to continue making these updates as we're also looking at expanding into other dot partnerships. Next slide, please. And also, this is just a recap of the Employee Pass program. We haven't spoken about this a lot recently, but we have started receiving some more interest from partners in the community. Most recently, we have been contacted by the Savannah Chatham Public Schools, which we would expect, but they're looking for their employees alternative transportation options for them. So we're working with them. We actually have a survey right now where we are trying to get, just kind of gauge the interest so that we can offer a proposal to Savannah Chatham. And this is only for the employees. We've also been contacted by Kessler Properties. So we're working with all of their properties right now. We have a survey going out now to their employees so that we can improve this Employer Pass program. We hope that more partners will reach out to us so that we can reach out to them with other options. Yes, sir.
On the DOT program, is that in conjunction with the fixed route as to the distance for passengers?
For distance, you said?
COVID.
Social distance.
Social
Yes,
distance,
sir.
yes.
And what's the frequency on the route?
We're still trying to do every 15 minutes. Is that
That's every 10.
every 10 minutes?
That's great frequency. That'd be really cool. That's good stuff.
Is it at maximum capacity? Is it spin back up?
Yes, I know that the Force side has been really doing good, and I think that based on the ridership numbers, it's been very comparable to the 14, which is really surprising for just being a month back in service. Is that about right, Mr. Cooksey? So yes, it's been really good ridership, and that's even been, even considering the social distancing.
Because I heard it missed real bad.
Yes, and we have received complaints, well, the bus wasn't even full, they wouldn't let us on. So we are getting those in place as well.
Right, that was another call I got about just sitting there with nobody on.
Well, people are on it, but.
It might have been during the
Pass.
program.
Oh, it might have been doing that week before we actually put the
Yeah.
bus back in service. We had some training for the operators. That might have been doing that time.
In addition to the Employer Pass program, just want to mention that another business partnership opportunity that we'll be registered for very soon is a potential opportunity to partner with Amazon. They've contacted us. So this just kind of goes in line with everything that Director Stone, Director Edison has made about, just trying to find different alternative ways to really just make sure that we're addressing the needs of our community. I mean, Amazon is coming next year, around June or July, and that's a great business partnership, but that's an opportunity for us to really just kind of reimagine and decide, how we can provide service to them. So we are looking at that business partnership and just how we can maximize that.
Will that just be a dedicated bus to go to Amazon?
Well, we're providing a few options to them. Initially, they asked about fixed route service, which most businesses do. They want fixed route service just to add to it. But based on the number of passengers or employees that they think will really use this service, we think it has to be a more specialized service. So we're providing a few options to them, hoping that for them to come up with some financing, so that we can better support their employees.
They're in Fuller.
Yes.
Are they near Gulfstream?
Yes, their new location, yes.
Gulfstream was willing to fund a bus to go to them.
Okay.
We had got that commitment from them like 3 years ago.
We had a bus route that stopped right out on the Gulf Stream Road, but then we went into the property, but there were 2 people that were using the service. But one person was disabled in a wheelchair. But there were 2 people. And that's what,
From what I understand now, people were riding the airport bus and walking from the airport over there. Maybe you can do a
that's something we
survey,
need to, yes, that's something we need to
do a
look at.
survey out
Because we
there,
went right on
see
the
how
property.
many people would be willing to use it.
Okay,
And then the 2 of them could go in for the cost of the vehicle. So,
Thank you, Sean.
Cost of the vehicle and labor, or some sort of, I mean, I think the vehicle cost is significant over a number of years. Or insignificant over a number of years compared to labor. But I think that would be a very good thing. I would also, again, just to redo my mantra, frequency. Also,
Okay, finally, we'll have our financial updates by Ms. Cutter.
good morning, everyone.
morning.
And what I'm going to do, I'm going to incorporate fiscal year 21 as a whole, along with a financial update for the personal use. Okay, the overview. This chart and graphic displays activity for the month of June, and of course for the entire fiscal year 21, a comparison of actual versus budget. In the month of June, for the very first time, you can see the exceedance of revenue in comparison to expenses at a significant level. Revenues exceeded expenses by a little over $1.8 million. The budget for June in terms of revenue was a little over 4.7 million. The budget for expenses a little over 2.2 million. Of course, a net variance of 2.477. If you look at the actual data for the entire fiscal year, when you look at revenues, budget versus actual, significant difference, $4.2 million. But then you have to look at the expenses as well. Actual versus budget. Actual 24.4 million in comparison to a budget of 27.5 million. Revenues declined, expenses declined as well, closing the gap for a net variance for fiscal year at a a little over $1 million. It's graphically displayed on the chart to kind of give you a comparison. If you look at the year-to-date actual in comparison to the year-to-date budget, you'll see revenues and expenses pretty close, closer than really expected. And of course, we started the fiscal year with a balanced budget as shown on the graph as well. Next slide. Okay, this slide and what I've attempted to do is walk you through the revenue picture and then come back and walk you through the expenditure picture. And I know when you look at this graph, you see, what is this big negative in October of 2020? And that's related to, if you look at the legend, the transit tax. And what happened, management decided we wanted to switch from an accrual basis, wherein revenues for transit tax was estimated at the same level over the fiscal year. But they decided they wanted to, at that time, actually look at the actual cash that was coming in. So a journal entry was done to balance it out at, I believe it was 2.1 million. No, $1.2 million. And from November on, we categorized revenue as it came in, the actual amount that we received for the rest of the fiscal year. And you can see that particularly the transit tax, it was up and down as expected. When the revenues come in, the next 2 months, the revenue is up. When tax season is over and the new billing comes out in November, you'll begin to see it go up. But this is the revenue picture for Chatham area transit. If you look at your passenger fees, you see how flat it is. If you look at your agency revenue, pretty constant over the year, and that's dot shuttle, paratransit, those type services. And the program special services pretty much flat because nothing was going on. And then of course our grant revenue and other revenue. Next slide, please. Now this slide just gives the category. And as we all know, the major source of revenue for Chatham area transit is the transit tax and the paratransit revenue that we receive from the county, and then of course grants. Next slide, please. Revenue comparison, actual versus budget, is exactly what it says. And I attempted to categorize the revenue by source so you could actually see what the revenue is doing by the different categories. If you look at the program and special services, there was none, but there was a budget for it as reflected on the graph. SSD, you can actually see what we collected in comparison to what we budgeted for each revenue category. Next slide, please. Operating fund expenditures. The attempt here was to display expenses by operating category. It's route, paratransit, marine, maintenance, mobility, and then of course, general and administration. The main peaks, let's take maintenance for instance. You see the peak in you see it going up in February and continue to go up through April. It came down in May and then back up. What that tells you when you really analyze the expenses is that we began to move back into operations. We're beginning to ease back into it. So you're going to see your expenses trickle up, and that's mainly in the maintenance division. It was because of the cost of supplies and materials. If you look at the administrative piece, we had some major changes that really hit the budget in the month of October, and that was pretty much driven by staffing changes. It went down, and then back in April, it began to go back up. It began to go back up in April because you had your insurance payments, you had a few vacant positions filled. Those type of changes began to hit the budget in April through June. You can see, everyone knows that the ferry system is great. Look at the expenses, everything is pretty much constant, balanced. They were keeping things going. You didn't see significant changes on the expense side. You still have to pay staff, still have to maintain the ferries, you still have to pay insurance, you still have to buy fuel. So This is just to show you the fluctuations in expenses and in some areas, how we began to move back into providing public transit services and the expenses that are mainly impacted by that. Next slide, please. Here again, expenses by category. It's broken down by quarter, by category. And if you look at the fourth quarter, you begin to see the expense level to get higher. And that's all because we're beginning to transition back and somewhat towards normal operations. Next slide, please. Cash balance. This graph pretty much looks the same year by year. That ending cash balance is going up and down, and it's based on when grant revenues comes in, and it's also based on when that transit, what that transit revenue is doing. It pretty much looks the same. When that grant revenue is up, it's going to peak. When the transit tax revenue is coming in, it's going to peak. And this is a snapshot of what it actually looked like for fiscal year 21 by month. Next slide. Where are we going in terms of procurement? Procurement falls under finance, and we're really taking a close look at our policy and how our policy looks in comparison to what the FTA expects of us. And with that, we have to ensure that our procurement process is open and accessible to all qualified vendors that are ready, willing, and able to provide CAT with a good or service. The FTE wants us to ensure open doors for DDE participation. We have to take our goals seriously. Contract compliance. Very, very important. Violations of contract compliance can cost this organization money. If we contract with a company for a certain good or service, we have to have watchful eyes to make sure that our vendors are complying with the terms of the contract. Now, what can we do to make our procurement process more user-friendly to the vendors, the small businesses, the large businesses as a whole? We can conduct some virtual training. Small businesses don't have as many opportunities as large businesses, but we can encourage collaborative approaches to the procurement process. It means stepping outside of the walls of CAT, building relationships with the city, the county, the school board, who has strong vendor participation programs, and take advantage of that. Invite our vendors in to learn the type of services and products that CAT is going to be procuring, and invite them in so that they can better prepare themselves to participate. Next slide, please. And as we move forward, what's going to be the focus? The focus is going to be on the policy that is set by this governing board. Strong internal controls that protects our assets. The integration of HR and payroll functions so that when we prepare our budgets, one number feeds the other. It rolls into the budget process so that it's not as labor intensive and more accurate. Streamlining the accounts payable, the accounts receivable process. We must do that. We must pay our vendors on time. Cashier function enhancement. Is our equipment antiquated? Is it the most effective? We don't receive a lot of cash anymore. So we have to take a look at our cashiering functions to gain and really make that side of things more efficient and the integrity of the receipt of cash money, we must strengthen that to ensure accuracy and accountability. I talked a little about procurement enhancements. It is critical that we are in sync with our funders, ensuring that our procurement process is fair and it's open. And you reach those goals through outreach and training, and then by looking at what you do, monthly audits to see how well we do, and sharing that information with the governing board so that you can send our message as well. Succession planning. Getting to know our financial system. There are capabilities in that system that we've never used that can add great benefit to Chatham area transit. So what are we doing? We're getting trained on the MUNIS system so that we can maximize the use of the system to strengthen our internal processes. That will include the succession planning. It includes finance, procurement, and budget training and certification programs to all staff that desire to move up in the organization. We must prepare them for that. Budget prep. We do have a budget module within the MUNIS system, but we've never really used it. We, in the month of July, and you'll hear more about that in the July report, we've actually had virtual training, a full day of training for the staff. We have to take advantage of a system that we pay for to maximize our efficiencies. Internal services, I know you all have probably heard about enterprise funding and enterprise funds and treating our operating funds like fixed assets and paratransit like an enterprise fund. That's managing these work programs just like a business. It's fair based, but there are certain requirements that comes with enterprise funds. Has to be separated in a separate bank account, have its own statements and all of that. Getting to know MUNIS helps us to move forward. And if this board and the staff decides we want to move forward with that concept of financially managing paratransit, I think it's good simply because when customers come to us and want us to provide transit services, we need to know how much it costs. We need to be able to tell them exactly how much it costs, and that includes overhead, not just what we pay the drivers to drive or maintenance to maintain the buses, the asset, but it's what the administrative support, the board support. There's a price tag to all of that, and that's what enterprise accounting, that's what it does for you. It captures every cost and it spreads appropriate costs through the various different services. And then a 10-year financial plan. We need to be able to see where we're going. And we need to know what it's going to cost to get there. And it's not all cash. It's about community partnerships. It's about service delivery, cost sharing. But if we put it all together in a plan, it gives us an idea of where we're going. It helps you to develop good, strong policy that guides staff in getting there. It's nothing like saying we want to expand the water ferry system, but we never get there. There's no plan for funding or backup funding. That local match support, we have to get that buy-in. We have to get that commitment, or else we're stifled. The program is growing. but we don't have a vote on order because the local match is not committed. So all of those things we have to work toward a good board making good policy to give us guidance as to which direction we need to go in. So that's the financial management focus for this fiscal year 22. And under the leadership of Ms. Ragland, we're moving forward.
Thank you. You guys understand, yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Just for the record, could you discuss the memo that you put in the file, please?
Oh, okay. It recently came to my attention that during a previous investigation, it had something to do, obviously, with abuse of funds. And CAT paid back the money that was used, that surfaced out of the investigation. The FTA received that payment back. However, we are still carrying an amount of SPOS funds that has not been reimbursed to Chatham County. As I dug a little further, I found that the prior CEO wanted to kind of wait to see if we could, if CAT could kind of work it out to see if they could get Chatham County to perhaps waive the repayment. But we have to keep in mind that those were public funds. And you really have to be good students. You have to operate by the book. No questions asked. If you owe it back, you pay it back expeditiously. And it's coming before the board. I believe it's a little over $49,000 during the month of August. And Ms. Ragland did not want it to be a surprise to the board. So this is just heads up, it's coming. And hopefully you all will do the right thing to approve this, to get taxpayers' dollars replaced as it should.
Thank you.
Will that be made up?
All right, is all right.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I asked for her to put it, to say it for the record.
Thank you, Gregory and staff, for a great presentation. Now, next on the agenda, we'll move on to executive session. We're gonna take a 10-minute break. For this time. The purpose of the executive session today will include pending potential litigation, tax matters, real estate acquisition, and personnel. As needed basis. So we're gonna take a roll ballot before we go into the executive session. Do we have to take a vote on?
Make the next motion to go into executive session.
Second.
Yes.
Yes.
Director Stone,
Yes.
Director Love,
Yes.
Director Adams,
Yes.
Director Robinson,
Yes, and can we put a time limit or on how long we'll be in this session?
okay, we're gonna take a break for 10 minutes.
Say that again, I'm sorry, Chairman, I didn't hear.
Yes, we don't know. We gotta speak with the attorney. I don't believe it's gonna take long, but I can't say for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Director Lake,
But we are gonna take a 10-minute break.
keep it to 10 minutes.
Yes.
Director Lake,
Yes.
Director O'Halloran,
Yes.
Chairman Cody.
Yes.
Chairman, the motion passes.
Thank you.
We're gonna take the break, right? All right.